Last Sunday, 3 U.S. soldiers were killed in Jordan by Iraqi militias backed by Iran. On Friday, the U.S. responded with strikes on military sites in Iraq and Syria used by Iran and its proxies. Over the weekend, the U.S. and UK struck another Iran-backed group, the Houthis of Yemen, who have been harassing international ships in the Red Sea. Is the Middle East spiraling into a broader war? Fali was recently in the region. He is a professor at Johns Hopkins. Womina al-Araibi is the editor-in-chief of The National, a state-backed newspaper in Abu Dhabi. Fali, let me start with you with the kind of urgent question of the moment, which is, you've seen these attacks that the United States has done in response to the militia attacks from the Houthis and the others. Do you think that these militias are going to escalate, or do you think they viewed this as a fairly limited, calculated response by the United States?
I think the killing of the 3 Americans brought a sort of a moment of truth for Tehran, Hezbollah, and the Houthis all together to see whether or not they want to go any further than they have. And I think they do not want to escalate into a full-fledged confrontation with the United States. They expected the United States to hit back. I think they're happy that the United States has not hit Iran, that it has hit specific targets that it has associated with particular actions of these militias. And I think the Iranians have at least put out in their own newspapers and media that no Iranians were killed, no Iranians were there, the buildings were empty, which means that they're not claiming any casualties that requires escalation. So I would anticipate that the Houthis and the Iraqi militias will have to show some kind of a reaction, but it would not be at the level that would escalate this conflict. And that depends on what the United States does next.
And Fali, just give us a sense, again, one of the questions, the burning questions is, how independently do these militias act? Is it likely that Iran planned and pulled the trigger on these attacks that resulted in the death of American soldiers?
I don't think that either Iran or these groups wanted to kill American soldiers because they knew that that would be a bridge too far and the U.S. would have to react very aggressively. I think the broad strategy here is to attack the United States, attack Israel, consolidate the strategic gains that they made on October 7th and continue to make sure that the guerrillas win and the conventional Israeli army loses, as you mentioned in your introduction. But I don't think that every decision is made in Tehran. And it only takes something big like the killing of the 3 American soldiers that might lead to essentially that kind of a command and control. I mean, there have been 160 attacks made on U.S. targets, more than that, and perhaps as the time we're speaking. And I don't think every one of these is managed out of Tehran. I think Iran has given the broad support that this is the time to put pressure on U.S. and Israel. But I don't think they manage them as tightly as we are assuming.
Womina, this is creates something of a quandary for many of the Gulf states. They have no love for Iran. They have no love for these militias that often stir up trouble. For the Saudis, the Houthis in Yemen have been a sworn enemy. And yet, I was in the region 10 days ago. They really don't want a wider war, right? So which is dominating right now? The desire to punch Iran in a sense, or the desire to not let this spread into something wider?
I would say the primary priority at the moment is not to let it spread further. The Gulf requires stability, always wants to see a de-escalation. Absolutely, there are huge concerns about these militias. Let's not forget that the Houthis attacked both the UAE and Saudi Arabia before they were attacking ships in the Red Sea. There's a sense that a limit has to be put on these militias. Jordan, and the attack that the 3 American soldiers were killed in was on Jordan. That was the first time that you have these militias targeting Jordan so directly. And so there is a concern this is going to get out of control. But the key concern in the Gulf at the moment is getting a ceasefire in Gaza, which will take away some of the excuses that these groupings are using to escalate further. And the second, to see a serious American strategy on how to deal with these militias. Again, these militias have been getting stronger and stronger for at least the last 15 years. And part of it has been because of the US turning a blind eye, seeing that they can live with them as long as their own troops are not targeted, and yet we see them escalating year on year.